Salutations, everybody. Thank you for watching episode 71 of DiabeticRadio.com. I really apologize for not doing a video for a while, but it's just one of those things where I just needed a break. I'm sure a lot of my fans understand. So, for today's subject, what does your blood sugar feel like when it's very low or high? Throughout the diabetic community, we've focused a lot on the prevention of long-term diabetic complications. Some of these complications can include, but not limited to, amputations, blindness, nerve damage, and hearing loss, just to name a few. Now, however, what I want to share with you in this video is that it's not just about the long-term complications we need to focus on. It's also the short-term complications as well. Now, this is just me personally, because people have their own opinions just about everything these days. But for me, from my experience, short-term complications are way more important than the long-term complications. Yet, by paying attention, close attention to the short-term complications, will more than likely help prevent the long-term complications as well, indirectly. So in essence, it's like a trickle-down effect. So Yogi, what do you mean when you say short-term complications? Because I'm sure a lot of people wasn't even aware of something called short-term complications. Well, let me start off by explaining, in essence, my personal definition of long-term diabetic complications is. Long-term diabetic complications are the result of, or I should say, a series of chronic disorders that manifest due to many years of hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar, or hypoglycemia, which is low blood sugar, regardless of the type of diabetes you have. I think this is a very important point to make, because a lot of people don't realize that we can also suffer long-term complications or short-term diabetic complications from having blood sugars that are consistently too low as well. A lot of people think, diabetic, it has something to do with sugars, so if you have low blood sugars, that's a good thing, right? No, not necessarily. We can also explain long-term complications as simply as the body's inability to no longer tolerate the years of excessive blood sugars or long-term glucose deprivation. Okay? Keyword, glucose deprivation. Society is so busy talking down to people, those of us who are overweight, that we forget about the issue of people actually eating too little, trying to get rid of the diabetes, or starving ourselves to death just to avoid insulin shots. You have to understand, my non-diabetic friends and my diabetic friends, we have to understand that there's no cure, man. There's no cure. And in addition to that, diabetes is a progressive disease, regardless of what type you have. So if years down the line you find out you need to start taking pills, so be it. It's about whatever it takes, or you doing whatever it is you need to do to take care of your diabetes. That's what's important. Just know that we can manage it. Almost just like those commercials, when they say, when diet and exercise is not enough. Okay? Despite what many people think, especially those who are not diabetic, diabetes is not as easy as people think. It's not easy in any way, shape, or form. It takes constant focus. And losing weight is not easy either. It doesn't mean we can't lose weight. It just makes it harder when your genetics are involved. While I'm on the subject, of genetics, we need to understand that genetic coding is almost like a blueprint as to how someone will look like, and possible chronic illnesses that one can that can be transferred over, to the child by the parent. Sometimes genetics can skip over a sibling, or sometimes it can skip an entire generation. The problem that I notice is a lot of people, particularly non-diabetic people, are using the word genetics and lifestyle interchangeably. Keep in mind, while a healthier lifestyle is crucial to all human beings, whether you're diabetic or not, lifestyle and genetics are two entirely different subjects, yet they can relate to each other. Okay? And hopefully, as you learn more about diabetes, you'll also learn that being overweight has its own separate set of issues. Some genes take immediate effect on one's body. Other genes lay dormant inside our bodies until the right condition arises that would activate those genes to do the things that they do. Example, sometimes it's food, with the gluten or lactose intolerance. Sometimes it's the medication. Sometimes it's environment. Sometimes it's viruses. Conditions such as chickenpox sometimes triggers off all kinds of genetics and autoimmune responses. Just like shingles. Did you know that chickenpox can cause shingles way later on in your life? Anyways, I'm saying this to say, stop confusing genetics with lifestyle and making the presumption that genetics mean everybody in the household eats in the same way, which is unhealthy. Because let me tell you, I've been using insulin since 2009, so that's 3.5, going into the 4th year of being insulin dependent. If I was really an unhealthy eater, beyond a shadow of a doubt, I would have gained, within this time, I would have gained about 200 additional pounds being on insulin, if I didn't have some form of control, if I didn't know what I was doing, if I didn't understand the relation between insulin and carb counting and all that good stuff. Like I said, it's not just about food, damn it. Yet at the same time, food and staying active is crucial to living a healthy life with diabetes, complication free. Short-term complications are complications that occur almost immediately in real time. They can come from either hypo or hyperglycemia. Let's go over some of the common symptoms. Just as a reminder, everybody is different. You may feel other symptoms not listed in this video. So let's see. First off, hypoglycemia, low blood sugar, is said to be 70 milligrams per deciliter or less, although I've heard that some people can feel symptoms from as high as 90 milligrams per deciliter. This could depend on how long you've been a diabetic. Other symptoms are shakiness, feeling weak, sweaty, cold and clammy hands, feeling dizzy. Sometimes your heart palpitates, being confused, passing out, and most severe case is being comatose or death. Low blood sugars must be treated immediately. Okay, I should take this moment, this opportunity to say this. Caretakers of people with diabetes, I know you mean well, but you must get through your thick head that candy is not the cause of diabetes. Hiding candy from an insulin-dependent diabetic can put their lives in danger. Do not presume to know what we need. Let us tell you, or ask the diabetics doctor what is needed. Then there is hyperglycemia, which is high blood sugar. It's said to be 180 milligrams per deciliter, and commonly happens when you forget to take your insulin, or if you are in a sport that builds large amounts of adrenaline, thus causing your blood sugar to rise, and a bunch of other things can also raise your blood sugar. Symptoms include being thirsty, frequent urination because your body's trying to flush out the glucose, being fatigued, blurry vision, headaches, irritability, loss of focus, dizziness, and feeling overwhelmingly sleepy. Now, everybody has a different tolerance level, but understand that both hypo and hyperglycemia are very dangerous, and you can die from both extremes. You must take care of these immediately. It is very important that both type 1 and type 2 diabetics check for ketones when blood sugars are over, I'd say 250, 260. A lot of doctors mistakenly think that type 2s can't get ketones, but they can, and they do. Granted, it's not often that you would hear that a type 1 would get it, but type 2 would get it, but they do. Thank goodness my blood sugars are rarely high these days, except when I forget to take my insulin, and it happens. But I do remember in the beginning when my blood sugars were fluctuating between the 400 and the 600 ranges, the symptoms that I felt were like my chest, felt like it was decompressing, when it was going from the high down to the low. And it was so rough for me because my blood sugars has been high for so long that when trying to get my blood sugars in normal range, I was like, oh my God, it is a feeling like no other. And it was pretty scary. After getting used to normal blood sugar levels, when my blood sugars would get super high, when I get hyperglycemia, it almost feels similar to having a major flu or a cold, or sometimes even pneumonia, light headaches, inability to focus, sometimes heavy headaches. It also feels like someone has pumped air into my chest. And at one point, there was a time when all the lights in the house looked like they were dim. I'm sure I'm missing a lot of other symptoms, but I just can't remember. Those are the only things that I can remember. To have blood sugars beyond your doctor's recommended ranges are dangerous and could lead to hospitalization or even death. As an insulin dependent, person, I understand that our blood sugars are never standard. Our blood sugars are never stagnant. Our blood sugars are consistently fluctuating from 1 hour to the next. And again, I know you mean well, but this is why non-diabetics need to mind their own business when it comes to our blood sugars. When diabetics test our blood sugars, it is only a snapshot of that moment in time, and it does not represent our whole A1C. Our glucometer is only there to prevent short-term complications that need to be handled immediately. The glucometer is not an invite for every Tom, Dick, and Harry who's not a diabetic to critique what they think, especially if you're medically untrained, what you think our blood sugar or my blood sugar should be. Okay? Having said this, it really infuriates me that there are still so many doctors today that tell their patients that they only need to test once every morning. Even if a person is a non-insulin dependent person, you can really learn a lot about the foods you're eating when you test frequently, in addition to how your body is affected by the blood sugars throughout the day. I would like you guys to do me a favor. Those of you who are not always in control, not in control of your blood sugars, I want you to test when your blood sugars are high. Pause for about 5 minutes and make a mental note of how you feel. Then test your blood sugars again when you feel that it's normal. or when you've done whatever it is you need to do to get your blood sugars down, test again. Take 5 minutes, make a mental note of how you feel. Now, I want you to compare those two numbers and also compare the two feelings you had based off your two numeric values that you've gotten from your glucometer. You will clearly see that it's well worth the effort to keep your blood sugars at a normal range. Never mind long-term complications, the real-time complications, how you feel now, it's worth it. If you like being in the 3 and the 4 and the 500 ranges, then, I guess that's your problem. You must like being in the hospital all the time. But for the majority of us diabetics who want to live a complication-free life, we're going to try to do the best we can to take care of our blood sugars. Thanks for watching. Love you guys. Bye. Mwah.